Labor's plan to give us a kind of Aboriginal-only parliament that it calls The Voice and to put it in our constitution so it can't be removed. In your book, you say you need to see the details before you make up your mind. But isn't it, in principle, racist and an insult to liberal ideas? Because in your book you write, and I'm quoting here, to classical liberals, the collective will never smothers the individual. It is a tradition that has opposed distinctions based on class. You put it very well. But I would have thought that the liberal tradition also opposes distinction based on race or who your ancestors were, and for exactly the same reasons. So therefore, shouldn't you actually be against this Aboriginal-only kind of parliament?
Look, I understand that, and these are arguments that the Liberal Party and others have to digest in the weeks ahead as they resolve their attitude towards the Voice proposal. I don't believe that the Voice proposal will be accepted in a referendum unless it has bipartisan support, and even then it may not succeed. Now, my view is that the best way of recognising the undeniable truth that the first Australians were the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders is to insert that statement in a preamble or the Constitution somewhere, and that was what I had in mind way back in 2007 when I suggested that. Once you go beyond that, then you get into more difficult territory. Now, one possible way of handling it would be to legislate for the proposal and see if it worked, see if it had the flaws that people feel it might have. And if that legislation worked, then you might then consider a referendum proposal. But anything that raises the possibility of division and giving special status is not going to work.
Well, that's exactly what this starts out on principle to do, to give Aborigines a different status, or people identifying as Aborigines, even at Bruce Pascoe, a different status under the Constitution with different voting rights. And I think, and on principle, that's against Liberal policy.
No, I mean, I'm not here to defend the proposal because it's not my proposal. And if I'd have still been in government, which of course I'm not, I wouldn't have put it forward. I would have put forward something that recognised that they were here first, because nobody can argue with that, it's true. And that would be a proper recognition. But the concern that many people will have is that any recommendation made by such a body would really coerce a government into accepting it. Now, we've got to examine and debate whether that would truly be the case, but these are the sort of issues that need to be understood. And of course, as I understand it, the Voice is but one of three elements that came out of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. The other two elements are what I've described as truth-telling and treaty-making. Well, I think most Australians are aware of the strong view I have about the idea that a nation can make a treaty with itself. That is ridiculous. And the attempt...
Unfortunately, though, once you concede the principle of a separate Aboriginal-only parliament, you are conceding the idea that there's ultimately a justification for an Aboriginal state and a treaty.
No, well, you're not... I'm not sure that automatically follows. You're talking here about a body that, according to the explanation I've heard from the Prime Minister to date, it would clearly be expressed as subordinate to the Parliament. Now, you can argue about whether that's what it would end up meaning, but that's what he's saying. But there are some people in the coalition who are totally opposed to anything that the government will put up in this area. There are some who are sympathetic to it to a large degree. There are a lot in the middle who have goodwill, who basically think the way in which you have true reconciliation is to improve the lifestyles and opportunities and job prospects of Indigenous Australians, to really echo the words of Senator Jacinta Price, an Indigenous woman herself who's just come into the Senate, who said that she really wants practical things done to reduce domestic violence and the deprivation of women and children in the Northern Territory. She's basically saying to a lot of people, you don't automatically achieve that by fine-sounding words, you achieve it by practical gestures on the ground.
I'm glad you finished on by mentioning Jacinta Price. It's funny, isn't it? I think she's the most exciting recruit the Liberals have had for many years. And also to hear from her mouth come sentiments that in large part echo what you have written in this book is really quite something. I think it'd be a mistake for people to treat her just, oh, that's just an Aboriginal voice. She is broader. She speaks, I think, for the Liberal tradition.
She's much broader than
that. I'm so glad that you've put in your book, stated some of the things that you believe are in that tradition. John Howard, always a pleasure talking to you. Look, I could have gone on for the whole show. Your book is so fascinating. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.